Hello, thanks for joining me today. I'm Jan Clothier of Thinking Stamping, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in New Zealand. And today I thought I'd share with you how I made this very pretty and also very easy card using the Earthen Textures bundle from the 2023 to 2024 annual catalogue. Now, I made this card as part of the Instagram inspiration, I won't call it a hop, but the inspiration provided by the Stampin' Fancy Friday team. Stampin' Fancy Friday, we're a group of past and current Stampin' Up artisan design team members. And our topic this month was to case another team member. So I took a card made by the ever gorgeous and ever wonderful Emma Goddard, the coastal crafter, and I have used it as an inspiration for this card. And if you'd like to see the original, then have a look on my Instagram and see what I started out with. Anyway, what I really like about this card is that it gets away from the very earthy tones of the DSP that goes with this bundle. So it gives it a fresh and almost tropical look. And also I love the fact that it's just so easy, but it looks like you've spent hours and hours working on it. So what do you need? Well, there's the Earthen Textures stamp set, and that bundles with the Earthen Textures dies, and so obviously they're a given. As always, if you live in New Zealand and you see something that I use today and you'd like to add that to your craft stash, please shop with me. There's a link to my online store in the video description below, and you can also get to it through the social media links at the end of this blog. So Earthen Textures bundle is our starting point. Now, what else do we need? Well, I have used I've chosen to use Coastal Cabana because it's such a beautiful, beautiful colour, and I love its sort of tropical feel. So as always for me, this is a standard card base, half of an A4 piece of paper. So it's 21 centimetres that way, scored at 10.5, and I've cut it at 14.8. Now, if you're not a metrics person, you're an imperial person, then just use your standard size card base and adjust to whatever sizes you'd normally use. Okay, so we've got our card base. Now, I've got a card front, which is also in Coastal Cabana, and it's cut half a centimetre smaller, and if you're an imperial person, it's about 1/4 inch. So this is 10 by 14.3. I've got a piece of basic white, which is 10 by 14.3, and that's for the inside of the card. So we'll just pop that aside because we don't need it just at the moment. And we also need some basic white, just a piece of basic white to do the sentiment on. So we'll leave that there for when we need it. And the other thing that we need is something that we're going to do these gorgeous, gorgeous die cuts from. Now, you could just do it in basic white or perhaps very vanilla, but I did it in Fluid 100 watercolour paper. Now, this was serendipitous, I suppose, because I intended to do a bit more inking and to flick it with water and, you know, lift the colours and do that kind of vibe. But once I got started, I decided I just liked that clean look, and I didn't do it. And the reason that I'm going to do it again in the Fluid 100 watercolour paper is because I just like that sort of thick, creamy look. It's just got quite a different look than the basic white. So I've chosen to keep with the Fluid 100 watercolour paper, even though I'm not really doing anything watercolory with it. And what do you need to do with that? Well, you need to get the dies, and you need to cut yourself 2 of those. Although you don't need to cut the whole stem because we're not using the stem. 2 of the sort of frond and 2 of the grass. So here's our two die cut palms, and we can see I haven't bothered cutting the stems because we don't need them. I just cut them off the edge of the paper. 2 fronds and 2 grasses, and we're going to deal with those in a moment. What are we going to do next? Well, we are going to start with our card base, because although it looks like there's nothing on the card base, actually there is. So I've started with some Coastal Cabana ink, and I'm going to take my blending brush, and I'm just going to make myself an area that is darker. So I'm just going to tap, 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 ink, 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 in a sort of a circle, because most of my action is going to happen up there in that top half. So I'm just going to make myself basically a ring of darkness. Okay, Now at this point, if I wanted to get really creative, I suppose I could splash on some white pigment ink, or I could splash on some water, but again I'm going for a kind of a clean look, so I'm just going to leave it like that. Now I'm going to take my fronds, my palmy fronds, and I'm going to get some Granny Apple Green. Again, I'm going to take my blending brush and I'm just going to add some colour. I'm going to tap off a bit and then I'm just going to circle on to the palm. Now you can do this to whatever degree of depth of colour you want. You can go light, subtle, you can go all the way to the ends of the fronds, or you can just sort of keep it fairly central. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to build up some colour on there, and then I'm going to do the same for the sister piece. Again, if you wanted to, you could flick these with water and lift some colour, or you could flick them with Wink of Stella or some white pigment ink just to give them some variation. But again, I'm not doing that because I am looking for a cleaner look. Okay, so that's what I'm doing with those. And I'm actually going to do similar to the fronds, although what I'm going to do with these is I'm probably not going to give them quite as much colour, so I'm just going to give them a bit of a touch of colour. But I'm hoping that they're not going to be quite as dark as that. And thirdly, but not leastly, I'm going to take these pieces of wheat or grass, whatever they are, and I'm going to use wild wheat. That's where I got the wheat from. Okay, so again, I'm going to tap it on, and I'm just going to give it, doesn't matter that I'm not doing that end, because that end where I'm holding it is going to be under the sentiment. So just some whoosh of colour. You can be as, you know, as tidy and neat or as distressed as you like. I'm going to go for a bit heavier on the edges because I don't want it to look too samey. Okay. And really, that's pretty much all we need to do. We do need to do a sentiment, but I'm going to talk about that once I've done a bit of assembling. So the assembling's really straightforward. Attach your card front, bit of glue around the outside, or tape if you're a tape person. Okay, you know me, I like my wiggle room, so I'm just going to pop that on central. I'm going to do a little wiggle room if I need to, just to get it straight. And then I'm just going to give it a nice little press with my bone folder just to get a nice neat crease. Now, fun bit, start arranging. So I'm going to go for a spray that way and a spray that way. I'm going to have some frond that way, and if that's annoying you, and I think it probably is going to annoy me, so whoop, a bit of pruning. All I'm doing here is I'm just doing like a rough layout so I can sort of see where I'm going. Let's give that one a wee trim as well. So I'm going to go there like that. My wheat is going to go over the top a bit. And then I can see, okay, is that all going to work with whatever sentiment I do? Now, the set is quite a heavy gratitude set. All of the sentiments are kind of thank yous in one way or another. But my original used this, you are proof that there is good in the world. So I've already stamped up one of those. But I thought that it would also be quite nice to try the thank you. So I've done that, and I'm not quite sure how that's going to fit, so that's why I've got the two to try. Now, you'll notice, you may have noticed, that in this set there is not a sentiment border. So the border that I have used, which you can see here, is quite lovely. It's dots, and in the centre of each one there's a little X, a little stitch. They come from the Timeless Arrangements die set. So for the proof there is good in the world, I use that larger one, and for the thank you I use that middle-sized one. So if I was going to use that one, we know that's going to work because it works over there. Is it going to work if I use a narrower one? Let's see. Well, I think I'm not going to really know that until I attach them a little more firmly. So I'm going to get my glue and my sponge. I'm just going to do a bit of attaching and see what happens. So here we go. Now I'm not actually going to put glue on every single millimetre of this die cut because I want it to look not like it's totally flat. I want it to give it a bit of life and a bit of vibe. So I'm going to leave the edges of the fronds unglued. So I'm pretty much just gluing up the centre. Okay. And we'll see how that goes. Next it's going to be dimensionals. You know that I don't like things sagging, so you know I'm going to be profligate in my usage of dimensionals. So, you know, if you've watched me regularly, you won't be alarmed at the fact I used 5 dimensionals on that one little sentiment. But, you know, I just don't like the look of things sagging in the middle, so it's a little pet hate of mine. Okay, so now we're going to pop that in the middle. I'm going to line that up with my grid paper so that I've got a better chance of getting it lined up. Okay. And now for some embellishments. Well, I'm going to use these lovely 2023 to 2025 in colour dots because, whoops, that's my nearly used up ones. Whoops. Because I've got some beautiful wild wheat ones, and the wild wheat goes really nicely with the fact we've used that ink in the sentiment and on the grass. So now let us see what we'll do. Well, we will have, I don't know, I think we'll have a little one there and perhaps a middle-sized one down there, and the big one can go maybe. I think I like it up there. Okay, so there we have it. There's our incredibly easy tropical take on Earthen Textures. You can see here that I've obviously been a lot darker in the inking, and here I've been more overall the same shade. So, you know, it depends what you like the look of, whether you like the look of darker bleeding out to an obvious white or whether you like a more all over look. It's entirely up to you. I'll just show you what I did on the inside of this one. So I just, before I added in my basic white piece, I just used the Toy stamp here, and I just stamped it in different generations of wild wheat ink. But obviously you could do whatever you liked. You could take some of these beautiful pots and build yourself up a lovely you know, vase of dried flowers, whatever you want to do. The inside's a really great place to have an experiment when you're playing with your cards. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching that card, and I hope that you're going to give it a try yourself. As always, if you've seen anything that I've used that you would like to purchase and you live in New Zealand, you're welcome to shop in my online store with the link below. If you've liked what you've seen and you haven't subscribed already, please do, so you don't miss anything new that I do. I'm always happy to answer questions, and you can contact me through the details in the video description below, or through my Jan Clothier Independent Stampin' Up Demonstrator Facebook page, or my blog, Thinking Stamping. And as always, everyone, happy stamping.